Hey guys, what's up? Nick here once again, and this is a tier list I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for, and I'm very excited to get into it myself. This is the tier list on all of the Twisted Metal Head-On from the Extra Twisted Edition characters. Now, I'm not taking into consideration the PSP version because there is some slight differences with certain cars, and also because it is the Extra Twisted Edition, I am going to be including the Twisted Metal Lost characters. That'll be a separate tier list that will take place after this one, but it's all going to be in one big video, so I hope you guys enjoy it. It's going to be a little longer, so get some popcorn, get some snacks, and hope you enjoy it. So with that being said, though, yes, this is all the characters in Twisted Metal Head-On, and first we're going to be looking at Axel. Now, when looking at Axel, it's actually a really great thing to see him back in the Twisted Metal series. The last time we saw him was in Twisted Metal Black, and he was a very good character in that game. I did give him a little bit of a lower ranking than I would have liked looking back at it, because I did miss one of the extra specials he had where he could essentially turn into a turtle, if you will, and hide in between the tires and then run over people doing extra damage. And apparently it's super broken in the Twisted Metal Black online version. Now, I had no prior knowledge of that, and that was 100% on me, so I would have ranked him higher than I did. But that being said, coming to Head-On, though, I really do feel this is a step down in Axel compared to the previous games he's been a part of. I think he's still okay, but he definitely is not nearly as good as he once was. I also am not a huge fan of the design this time around. I think the body and everything is fine, but the wheels just look really small. Maybe it's just me. I think the wheels should have been a lot bigger. He just doesn't look nearly as intimidating. His armor is more on the lower end this time around. He definitely feels a lot weaker. He is pretty quick. He feels pretty tight in his control. He doesn't feel sluggish like he did in Twisted Metal 3 or in even Twisted Metal 2, but his low armor and his special not doing all that much damage is definitely a downside, sadly, but all in all, he's still Axel we all know and love. He's got the shockwave special effect that we've all known and loved. It's just, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, and his armor is nothing to write home about, so I am probably going to have to move Axel down to a C tier this time around. Next up is the poster child of the series, Sweet Tooth. And in Twisted Metal Head-On, I think he's actually pretty damn decent. So he feels a lot like the Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal 2 in terms of his sluggishness and his speed. However, it is by far the better special compared to between Twisted Metal 2. It's essentially the same kind of concept. It's just like a ball that goes up and down and it homes in on the opponent. But it's extremely accurate now, and it does flame damage, so it's almost twice as strong. But I definitely prefer it in Head-On by far. His design of the card, though, I don't know. It kind of, for me, it's like a mix of Twisted Metal Small Brawl with Twisted Metal 2. It's just a little bit too cheesy for my take, I guess. I like the more dark, sinister look of Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal Black. You guys already know that. But yeah, so the design itself, not a huge fan of. But playing as him is pretty good because, again, his special is really good. He does a lot of damage. It homes in on the opponent, so it rarely ever misses. And he has really good armor. He's extremely strong in this game in terms of his armor output. But however, I do really miss the transformation, like mech version of him in Twisted Metal Black. So coming from that to this is a little bit jarring, I guess, going back in time, if you will, to the Twisted Metal 2 looking Sweet Tooth. So all in all, though, he's still really decent. His only downside essentially is his sluggish handling and his slow top speed. So I'm going to have to put Sweet Tooth in the A category this time. Next up is ATV. This is the first time we've seen him in the Twisted Metal series, and truthfully, it's definitely going to be his last. It's just a Mr. Grimm wannabe, is all he is. Don't get me wrong, I like the idea of more vehicles that aren't just straight up cars. They're more on these off-road type vehicles like dirt bikes and motorcycles and stuff like that. I do like the idea of an ATV driving vehicle, but yeah, in the execution, it just was basically Mr. Grimm wannabe is the best way to describe it. He's got less armor than Mr. Grimm in this game. He's not nearly as fast. His handling isn't even as tight. And his special weapon is god-awful. It's a shotgun blast. It barely does any damage. And I should have said this at the beginning. I apologize that I didn't, but I'm only taking into consideration how the vehicle is before any of the upgrades you get throughout the story mode. Because in Twisted Metal Head-On, when you kill characters, you get these upgrades. And by the end of the game, if you haven't died, your car is basically insanely overpowered. And everybody has their own special weapon upgrade as well to make it a lot stronger. So again, this is all just pre upgrades. So it's based off when you're on the first level of the game, how does the car feel? So yeah, ATV though, I mean, yeah, really weak armor, not that fast, sluggish handling in my opinion, and probably the worst special in the game. It's D tier, but I'm gonna change it straight up to trash tier because yeah, he deserves it. Next up is Hammerhead, and I gotta say, I like the design of Hammerhead this time around. Some people have complained he's not big enough, he doesn't seem large enough, but I think he looks fine. I think he's a decent size for what Hammerhead's supposed to be. I like the color scheme. Again, I just like the look of it this time around. And I do like that they kind of took inspiration from Grasshopper special with having Hammerhead almost lunge into the air a bit before it crushes down on a car to do damage. And it looks really cool in execution, but the only thing is it just doesn't do enough damage in my opinion. I think actually Grasshopper special does more damage in this game, which makes no sense because with how small Grasshopper's car is compared to Hammerhead's in this game, Hammerhead should be doing more than double the damage of Grasshopper's. So it's just a little bit of a weird thing. I feel if they made his special stronger and do more damage, he would have been way higher up on my list. But because his special is kind of on the weaker side, it really brings him down for me because he is slow, he is sluggish because he's a monster truck. It makes sense, but of course he has a decent amount of armor and he looks really cool. So, you know, he gets couple points for that, but for the most part he definitely is going to be on the lower tier. So sadly, it does pay me a lot to say this, but Hammerhead is a C tier. Next up is Crimson Fury. I'm so glad to see him back again. Last tier list in Twisted Metal Small Brawl, it was good to see him there as well. So he is from the OG Twisted Metal and he got shafted in that game. He just was not very good to play as. He looked really cool, he was really fast, but that was literally all he had. And then in Small Brawl, they definitely justified him a little bit more. They made him a lot better, but he still was not my favorite to play in that game, and his special weapon was kind of tricky to get used to. And this time around, I think it's the best version of Crimson Fury that we've seen. Not only is he super fast, he has a really good looking car, I love the look of it, and it's also really tight handling, probably the best handling in the game, but his special weapon is nowhere near terrible. I mean, it's a little tricky to aim at times on certain characters, and it kind of gives you a false sense of, oh, it looks like it can go through a wall because it's locking on enemies in a way, but that's not the case at all. It doesn't go through walls, but if you do get a direct hit, it does a decent amount of damage, more on the medium side. So all in all, I think Crimson Fury is really good in this game, but he's not amazing by any means because of the special weapon isn't super strong and he does have really weak armor, but I definitely think he is deserving of the B tier rating. Next up is Darktooth. It's super cool to have them as a playable character that you can unlock without having to use any cheat codes or game sharks or anything, and you beat the game once to unlock him, so it's pretty easy to do. And he's a lot of fun to play as. He's extremely strong. He has a ton of armor, of course. His special weapon is basically Mr. Slam special, but on top of that, instead of having regular machine guns that he can use, it's basically just non-stop Sweet Tooth specials on both sides of the car. So yeah, of course he's going to be overpowered. He is Darktooth. He's what everybody would want Sweet Tooth to be. And his character looks badass as hell. I love the design of Darktooth in this game. So yeah, we all know where this is going. He is definitely an S tier character. Next up is Grasshopper. I am glad to see them back in the game series of Twisted Metal. It was kind of a shame to only really see them in Twisted Metal 2 from that point on. And she was supposed to be in Twisted Metal Small Brawl, but got scrapped at the last minute and turned into Warthog. So it's one of those things where like I would have liked to see her make a return in some of the previous games up until now, but it's good to see her back regardless. I do like their vehicle. I like that it jumps up in the air still, just like Twisted Metal 2. It does the exact same amount of damage essentially. However, this time, thankfully, you don't take any damage yourself when you ram a vehicle with your special. So they did fix that issue from Twisted Metal 2, which is good to see, but they do have very light armor. They're not super quick. I mean, they are faster than most cars in the game, but they're not nearly anywhere near like Mr. Grimm or Specter or Crimson Fury. So they're definitely on the slower end, but they do have really good handling. So it's kind of a give or take on how they feel playing as them. But yeah, if their special did a little bit more damage, I think it does 17 damage on a direct hit. So if it did a little bit more damage, they definitely would be higher up on my list, but they are far from terrible. So I'm going to have to give them a B tier rating. Next up is the fan favorite, Mr. Grimm. We all have come to know and love this guy. I absolutely love Mr. Grimm in Head On. He is the definitive Mr. Grimm next to Mr. Grimm in Twisted Metal Black. Absolutely loved him in TM Black, but I gotta say, if Mr. Grimm in TM Black had the design of Mr. Grimm in Head On, he would by far be my favorite Grimm in any game, no questions asked. It's just, I'm not a fan of the sidecar vehicle. I've never liked the look of that. So being that in head-on here, he is just a straight up motorcycle, like a hot rod. And of course, he's got the iconic skull. He's the actual Grim Reaper. It's just super cool looking. And I absolutely love the design of his special weapon this time around. Like, don't get me wrong, in TM Black, throwing that sickle, the scythe, it looks super dope. But I gotta say, like, throwing the damned souls, like, it looks so sweet. And it does a ton of damage, as it should. You know, it's just like every other Mr. Grimm. It's just a straight arrow shot. It does not home at all on the enemies. You have to be very accurate. But yeah, if you get a direct hit, it will do a massive amount of damage, as it should. He's also the fastest car in the game, as he should be. He's very good at handling, so he feels really great to play as. A lot of fun. It's just he has really weak armor, which makes sense. He's a motorcycle. But yeah, his special weapon being amazing, mixed with playing as him, feels really great. I truthfully have to give Mr. Grimm an S tier ranking this time around. And next up is Mr. Slam. Really great to see him make a return as well. Last time we saw him on the Twisted Metal Small Brawl tier list, and he did really great in that game. He was really a lot of fun. And I gotta say, I do like him this time around as well, but I don't know what it is. I really don't. I wish I could be more descriptive on this. It's just a gut feeling to me. He's not nearly as iconic as he was in TM2, for me, at least in this game. Even though, looking at his vehicle design, he should be more badass than in TM2. He should be stronger, he should be faster, he just looks more scary. And don't get me wrong, like, I love the design of the car. Maybe it's a mix of the character itself just being worse for me. I hate the design of the character this time around. He just looks super nerdy and weird, and he's a ghost. And it just, I don't know, not a huge fan of the character this time around, but the car itself looks super badass. I love the look of it. However, playing as it, it definitely feels pretty sluggish, which I guess makes sense, you know, it's a construction vehicle. I like that the front of the vehicle does turn separately from the rear of it to make it more realistic in terms of this kind of vehicle in the Twisted Metal universe. And the giant claw looks amazing. You know, it catches the person and it slams them on the ground and chucks them forward, doing a massive amount of damage. He is super strong. Don't get me wrong. I also am not a huge fan of how fast the special looks when you're slamming cars down and throwing them. It just looks really weird. Again, this might just be me, but just for me personally, yeah, I've just never been a fan of how fast it is. I liked these slower, more heavy slams to the ground with the original Mr. Slam and the slam from Twisted Metal Small Brawl. So that being said, though, his real only issues in this game are his sluggish speed and sluggish handling. So because of that, I'm going to give him the same treatment I gave Sweet Tooth, where he is definitely an A tier. But because of the sluggish feeling of his handling and his speed, and just, I really wish his special wasn't as like fast and quick as it is in this game, that's the reason he's not an S tier. Next is Outlaw, and this is so funny to me. So this is kind of going back to my Twisted Metal Small Brawl tier list. I got a lot of hate on this, and I understand 100% why. That I completely glossed over the fact that in that game, you could rapid tap the special button to drain the health of the enemy and give it back to yourself to do a massive amount of damage on top of that. I didn't realize that was the case. I didn't know you could do that, and that's why I felt like Outlaw was the worst iteration in the entire series in that game. However, everything I said about Outlaw in that game actually relates to the one in Twisted Metal Head-On, and I'm really sad to say that. Their speed is pretty much medium. They're not very fast, but they're not really slow either. Their armor is a below medium. They're pretty weak in this game, if I'm being honest with you. And their special weapon is just, I don't know what they were thinking this time around. They don't have the draining ability, so you can't take health from other players. It only connects to one car at a time, and you have a limited range. Unlike in Twisted Metal 2 and Twisted Metal 1, when you connected to a car with a taser, you could go as far away as you wanted, and it would still stay connected and do damage to that character. But you can only connect to one car at a time. So I guess it kind of made it more fair. Now, in Twisted Metal 3, and then in Twisted Metal 4 with Meter Maid, they were able to connect to multiple vehicles at one time, but you had a limited range. So, you know, that made sense. It made it, again, more non-overpowered. And then in Small Brawl, my whole complaint was that you can now only connect to one car again, just like the first two games, but they also gave you a limited range. And it was kind of like, why they do that? It just seems really stupid. It really ruins Outlaw, in my opinion. And that's before I knew that you could actually still do a second move with it and drain their health to thus make the special twice, if not 3 times more strong. But that's just not the case here. The special is really weak. It only does, I think, 17 points of damage if you stay connected to the car the entire time. It only connects to one car at a time, and you have to stay within a certain range to keep the connection. So All in all, Outlaw is just the weakest Outlaw in the entire series, in my opinion. I'm also not a huge fan of the design of the car. It looks very bland. Nothing really speaks to me in terms of a design choice here. It just kind of feels like a, I don't know, like an afterthought, sadly. So I don't think I want to put them in trash tier because I still can play as Outlaw and I can still go through the tournament and be just fine, especially after they get their upgraded special. But yeah, based off just the regular Outlaw in the game, they are 100% a C tier. Next up is Roadkill, basically a copy and paste from Twistmail 2. There is absolutely no difference between the characters. They have the same boomerang special, they have the same amount of armor, same speed, which is about medium to high, pretty fast, and really decent handling. I mean, they're kind of the perfect definition of the middle of the road character for head-on. I don't really have any complaints with them other than that their special isn't very strong unless you can get people on the return fire, which what that means is the boomerang. So when you send it out, you can actually bring it back to the vehicle and catch it again, so you don't lose your special if you do miss the opponent. However, if you do hit the opponent when the special is coming back to you, it'll do pretty much double the amount of damage if you hit it straight on. So it is a skill gap. It's pretty difficult to hit people that way, but you can do it. So it's definitely a cool little iteration to the special weapon that you can get right off the bat. And again, with him having decent speed, decent armor, I have to give Roadkill the A tier treatment. He's just an all-around really decent character. Next up is Shadow. Shadow is a fan favorite for a lot of good reasons. They're driving a hearse, which is a hearse, however you say that word. It's a super dope vehicle for a Twistmail series. Absolutely love Shadow. Love the character behind it and everything that sort. And their special weapon this time around is the exact same, pretty much carbon copy of Twistmail Black's Shadow, which is like this glowing shadow that shoots out in front of you and you can detonate it on command, doing a ton of damage if it's a direct hit. However, there is one thing that's different with this game where if you do a rear attack with Shadow, it basically makes the special twice as big for a larger radius to do more damage. And it's really strong if you can hit it correctly. So very cool to see. And in terms of their stats, I mean, Shadow pretty much has a medium to high amount of armor. They are very strong this time around. They feel really strong. Medium to slowish speed. They're not super fast and they're kind of sluggish in their handling. But if you can get around that, having the decent amount of armor in that really good special, yeah, I feel bad putting so many people in A tier this time around, but Shadow deserves an A tier rating. The only thing keeping them from an S tier for me is that their special, to do the most damage, has to be a rear attack, which is very difficult to hit, and their sluggish speed and handling do bring it down just a little bit for me. Next up is Specter. In the picture here, they do have a spoiler, but for some reason in the Extra Twisted Edition, they removed the spoiler. I don't know why they did that. Absolutely love the look of it, but it is what it is. But that being said, playing as Specter this time around is a lot of fun. I love the feeling of the car. It's very fast. It's really good tight handling. And honestly, the armor doesn't feel that bad. I mean, looking at their stats, they do obviously have a lower armor count, just like Crimson Fury. But I think they actually do have more armor than Crimson Fury in this game, and they feel a lot stronger than that. And their special weapon is back to that classic ghost missile. It looks really pretty in this game as well with the green highlights. But yeah, just like any other game, it goes through walls, it homes in on opponents, and it can do a decent amount of damage. It's around 13 or 14 points of damage, which is a little under medium in terms of its damage output. So it is what it is, but it's kind of one of those give or take where, like, yeah, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but you can hit somebody from pretty much anywhere in the entire map and kind of cheese opponents that way. You can cheese the hell out of Tower 2 at the end of the game with Specter, no problem. Yeah, I love Specter in this game. He's probably one of my favorite iterations next to Twistmail 3's Specter. Yes, you heard me right on that, and I'm never going to go away from that opinion. But yeah, I love Specter in this game, so I'm going to have to put them in the S tier category. Just like Mr. Grimm, I really have no complaints with their vehicle this time around. Next up is Thumper, and this is the first iteration of Thumper's character pretty much being one of the biggest overhauls we've seen. It's actually a girl driving the car now, and she's pretty cool. I don't really hate the character all too much. I love the design of the car, and especially with the hydraulics, being a lowrider going up and down when you turn the special on and off, it's really cool. I love that design choice, but I'm not a fan of the special overall when it comes to these 3 fireballs that shoot out in front of the vehicle. It's like they try to take Twistmail Small Brawl's special and mix it with Twistmail 2's special with the flamethrower. It just doesn't work, in my opinion. I just don't like the look of it. I wish they would have kept the Soundwave feature from Twistmail Small Brawl N3, where it used a boombox to send out a Soundwave frequency to do damage or push people away. I love that idea, especially from someone whose name is Thumper. It just makes the most sense. So going back to the flamethrower, yeah, not a fan of it. It also doesn't do a lot of damage, and it's not super accurate. You can have somebody right in front of you, and one of the balls can easily hit the floor before it hits the character in front of you, and it just disappears. So yeah, their special it's not entirely useless. It's not like ATV special, but it's definitely far from good. And their armor is a little bit on the weaker side. I wish they were a little bit stronger. I feel like every Thumper up until now has been pretty decent in their armor output and be able to take a lot of hits without many issues. And they've also never been very slow either. And I feel Thumper this time around is, again, kind of on the slower side. So do I think they're bad enough to be trashed here? No, not really, because again, I like the design of the car. And yeah, the special isn't really that great. And the speed isn't that great. And the armor isn't that great, but it's nowhere near like super low to the point where it's infuriating to play as them. And they're definitely better than ATV, so I'm gonna have to bump them up to C tier for this time around. Next up is Cousin Eddie, another brand new character to the Twist Metal series. And man, I don't know why didn't they just bring Minion back for the first boss? I don't know why they created this whole new character, and they are really bad. Everything about them is really trash. I don't like the design of being a motorhome in Twisted Metal. It just doesn't seem right to me. His special weapon is literally Dark Side special from Twisted Metal Black, and it's horrible. It does like 5 damage. I'm not even kidding you. It's super terrible. And he's got good armor. He's a big vehicle, a lot of armor, but he's super slow, probably the slowest and sluggish vehicle in the entire game. And his special does absolutely no damage really at all. He's trashed here. I don't know. Everything about Cousin Eddie, just not a fan of whatsoever. And next up is Warthog, and this time around, he is literally a carbon copy of Twisted Metal 2's Warthog, just put into Twisted Metal head-on. Insanely good armor, really slow, really sluggish handling, but a very good special weapon, probably one of the better ones in the entire game. It has really good homing capabilities, and it does a lot of damage. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of damage, more on the medium side, but definitely not bad in any way, shape, or form. But the fact that the special homes in so well and it literally never misses, I mean, that right there is a huge plus in my eyes. So, I mean, there's really no downside to Warthog this time around other than just his sluggish speed and handling. So, you know what we're doing here. It's got to be an A tier. Now, I didn't make this tier list. This is from Tier Maker website. I don't know why Warthog from Twisted Metal 3 is in here. That is definitely an accident. Not sure why they're here. But clearly the only one that's missing from the game right now, there's actually 2 that are missing. One is Tower Tooth, which I didn't really feel like putting them in this tier list because they don't really make much sense to me. They're only playable on one map in the entire game anyway, and it's kind of tricky to unlock them. So I don't really feel like they should be on the tier list at all, in my opinion. But this is supposed to be Twister. I don't know why Twister doesn't have their own PNG. I don't know how Warthog from Twisted Metal 3 got in here. But let's just pretend this is Twister, okay, guys? So that being said, Twister this time around is the better version of Twister from Twisted Metal 2. Everybody knows that Twister is infamous for having one of the worst specials in the game. Now, in terms of aesthetic and its design, the special is amazing. It's a giant tornado that sucks all the characters into it. It does a pretty good amount of damage. Really cool idea. I love the vehicle as well. You know, the Formula 1 car. It looks super dope. However, the fact that the special would actually harm you more than the opponents more times than not was one of the biggest hindrances to that character in TM2, and it made it almost impossible to play as them. However, this time around, thank God, the special is the exact same as TM2. Your car starts spinning up on its front, does the giant tornado, it sucks anybody around you into it, and it throws them against walls or really anybody and does damage that way. The more characters you have in the tornado, the more damage it does. Vice versa, it's a great special. They're a lot of fun to play. And thankfully, because of the new engine, there's no issues with cars running into you while they're in your special, and you don't take any damage that way. However, they are very weak, you know, just like Crimson Fury, Mr. Grimm, Specter. Because they are a sports car, they're very fast. They are really weak, so you gotta be used to that, not having much armor. They are very fast, and they have pretty tight handling this time around, so they're a lot of fun to play as. The only thing is, I just wish their special did a little bit more damage. Like, even if you have every character in the match in one special, they don't do necessarily any extra damage hitting each other while in the tornado, at least not from what I've seen. It doesn't seem that way. However, if you are near a wall, that is the best way to do the most damage. Or if you're near, like, if you're on a map where you can throw somebody off a cliff and they do damage that way, that is also a great technique with Twister to throw them off a ledge with your special. But yeah, the best way to do damage is to throw them against a wall. Now that being said, if you can do that, it does a medium amount of damage. However, if you don't have anything to throw them at or off a cliff, it does a really weak amount of damage to the point where it's not useless totally, not like ATV useless, but it's pretty low. It's pretty down there. So even though I love the design of Twister, I love how they feel to play, it's just that I wish their special did a little bit more damage, or at least did extra damage to the vehicles while you had multiple vehicles in one special. So I'm going to have to be a little critical here, and I'm going to move Twister down to a B tier this time around. So with all that being said, this is my full and final tier list of Twisted Metal Head-On Extra Twisted Edition. Again, we're not taking into consideration any of the actual PSP OG versions. This is all strictly from the PS2 version. And again, this is Twister, not Warthog from Twisted Metal 3. Not sure what happened there, but it is what it is. So yeah, this is my full tier list. Just remember and always remind you guys that my opinion does not matter. If you don't agree with me on any shape or form of my list, that is totally okay. You can bash me in the comments all you like, but please, in the end, share your thoughts, share your tier list, let everybody know what you think is the best and the worst characters in Twisted Metal Head-On. I always love hearing guys' thoughts in the comments. However, before I sign off and let you guys go, we are going to be switching over here to Twisted Metal Lost and going over those cars now. Okay, I had to actually create my own tier list here. I had to go through the game and take screenshots and everything, so behold, here it is. I'll have a link in the description, by the way, to this tier list if you'd like to make your own. And if you'd like to join the Discord and post your own tier list in there, that'd be great. Link in the description. That being said, going into the tier list here of Twisted Metal Lost, if you guys didn't know, in the Extra Twisted edition of Twisted Metal, they added a whole separate category called Twisted Metal Lost. Essentially, this was the canceled project of Twisted Metal Harbor City, which was going to be a Twisted Metal Black sequel. And sadly, for many reasons, who knows, to the actual public, it got canceled. So they essentially wanted to give us, I guess, a taste of what Harbor City would have been. They added some extra levels to Twisted Metal Head-On Extra Twisted Edition, and this is what we got. Now, these are all the characters that are in the Lost Edition, and a couple of them actually are brand new. We got 12-Pack and Goldtooth. Goldtooth has got just the worst, ugliest looking thing I've ever seen in my life. I hope I never have to see it again, but it is very strong and insane, but we'll get to him last because he's on the far right here. But going left to right, we have Roadkill. Now, most of these are going to carry over from my Twisted Metal Black tier list because they're exactly the same, if not even a little better in this Lost version. So Roadkill is essentially the same vehicle. I really don't notice much of a difference in terms of their speed, handling, armor, and their special weapon. Everything is relatively the exact same. And as you guys know, I gave him the S tier treatment in Black, so I'm going to do the same thing here. He is an S tier character because he is the jack of all trades. Next is Crazy 8, essentially the same exact special weapon. We have the taser, just like Outlaw would have, and if you tap the directional pad in the correct direction of the enemy before you shoot them, you can do double damage. It's a very strong special as long as you're within range. He has decent armor, I'd say more on the medium to low end armor, but not too bad. He's very quick and very tight in his handling, so he's a lot of fun to play as. It's just his armor is a little weak, which is his main downside. So we're going to lower him down to A tier, but he's still one of my favorite characters to play as. Mr. Grimm, of course, we all know and love Mr. Grimm, and he's essentially the same exact character as in Twisted Metal Black. However, I don't know if it's just the engine or whatnot of Lost, but for some reason, Mr. Grimm feels a lot, I won't say a lot, he feels a little slower than in TM Black and also a lot weaker. I don't know if it's just the armor system or what, I don't really know, but he definitely feels a lot weaker this time around. He's still a lot of fun, don't get me wrong, he's still quick, he's still very tight in his handling, he has a very good special weapon, of course. It's just, he feels a little weaker and a little slower than TM Black, so I sadly can't get him that same S tier ranking, but I will still give him an A tier. Next up is Shadow, same exact character from TM Black, almost no differences, same special weapons, same damage output, same amount of armor. They have a medium to high amount of armor, sluggish handling, sluggish amount of speed, where they feel a little bit slower than they should in my opinion, but overall they're really decent. But yeah, I'm probably going to have to give them the same treatment I did in TM Black, which I believe was an A tier, and I still stand by that. Brimstone, pretty much the exact same as Black here. I think they actually do a little bit more damage with their special, but not by much. Still pretty damn weak. I still like the look of the vehicle, don't get me wrong. I like the idea of the character, but it's just the special weapon is super weak. Their armor is not very good, and they're not super fast, but they are on the faster spectrum, and they have pretty good handling, so they're a lot of fun to drive. It's just, yeah, not a very strong vehicle, pretty weak special. So yeah, they're sadly going to be in the trash tier. Next up is Axel. Same exact character from TM Black. The only thing is, and I definitely could be wrong with this, you'll have to let me know in the comment section below. I have not figured out how to do the second version of his special, which, you know, the two wheels protect him essentially and keep his body in the middle, and then it runs over vehicles to do extra damage. I haven't figured out how to do that in Twist Metal Lost. So if that is in the game, I apologize. I have not figured it out. So for right now, though, I'm going to say it's not in there. So he just has the shockwave that we've seen in Twist Metal Black, and it's not that great. It's kind of mediocre, and he has relatively weak armor. He's not very strong, but he is pretty quick still. He's pretty agile. So I'm going to have to give him a B tier rating. Next is Darkseid. I mean, we all love Darkseid. Super strong. Dollface is an amazing character. I love the design of the car, and just like TM Black, the special weapon's the exact same. It just does a ton of speed, ton of ram damage. They're a very strong vehicle still, because they're a semi, of course. However, they are still pretty slow with their regular speed, and they don't have that good of handling, but their handling is actually better this time around than in Twist Metal Black. It's less slidey, or like, it doesn't feel like you're on ice half the time. So they're actually a little bit better than in Twist Metal Black. So honestly, I have to give Darkseid the S tier ranking this time. Next up is Outlaw. Same exact special as in TM Black with the turret on top. They have pretty good armor. They're just a little bit slow and sluggish with their handling and speed. And their special, it doesn't seem like it's as strong as in Black. I think it actually is a little bit on the weaker side. It still is really accurate with his turret if you're in range of someone around you. But yeah, the special just doesn't feel nearly as strong this time around, so I'm going to have to bump him down to a B tier. Sweet Tooth, same exact as TM Black, transforms into the giant mech suit. It looks super badass. However, the missiles shoot like at half the amount of speed as they did in Black. I don't know what it is. They just feel a lot slower, so they're not as accurate. You do miss a lot more missiles this time around, but it does do about the same amount of damage as it would in that game. So it's still a really good special, don't get me wrong. It's just not as good as Black, sadly. They are sluggish in their handling and in their speed, and their armor is around the medium range. Not super strong, but not weak either by any means. It's one of those things where Sweet Tooth, I want to say I gave them an S ranking in Black, but I'm going to have to dumb them down just a little bit because of their special not shooting as fast as it did in that game. So I'm going to give them an A tier ranking. Yellow Jacket, the exact same character. I don't really see any differences whatsoever from Black and Lost. The same armor, you know, medium speed, pretty much medium down the entire board, except for I would probably put their special more in the lower tier in terms of its damage output. You do have the two options where you can either shoot the special out or ram somebody to do a little bit extra damage, but even ramming somebody, it still doesn't do all that much. So sadly, Yellow Jacket, I'm going to have to put in the C tier. Junkyard Dog, same as TM Black. I don't really have much to say about them. They're pretty meh this time around. And if anything, actually, their special does less damage than the Napalm. The Napalm in Lost, for some reason, is really overpowered. It does a ton of damage if you do a direct hit. And it also lets your opponent stay on fire after the fact, whereas Junkyard Dog special does not do that. So, yeah, they're very slow, very sluggish handling. They have good armor, but that's pretty much it. I still think they're better than Brimstone, so I'm not going to say that they're trash tier, but I will put them down in C tier. Next up is Specter. So this time around, they're the same as Black, where they have the really fast vehicle, good handling, decent to pretty low armor. I won't say they're really super low like Mr. Grimm, but they definitely are on the lower side with their armor. And their special weapon is pretty strong, once again, just like TM Black, where it does a relatively good amount of damage. It still is a ghost missile, so it goes through walls and it's very accurate. So yeah, Specter's really good this time around. I don't necessarily think they're good enough to be S tier, mainly because, again, I'm not a huge fan of the design of the vehicle, and it doesn't feel as good as other games. I think Specter in Head On is a better Specter than in Lost, so because of that, I'm going to have to put them in the A tier category. Manslaughter makes a return as well. He's just as strong as he is in Twist Metal Black. I mean, he is super powerful in terms of his armor. It takes a lot of hits to go down. His special weapon is very strong as well if you can get a direct hit, but it is still kind of random on if you do get a direct hit on somebody in front of you. And I believe you can still drop the rocks behind you to leave as like a landmine to do damage that way. Really, his major downside is he's extremely slow and extremely sluggish. Those are like the two big reasons I don't necessarily like playing as him. But yeah, I'm going to give him the same ranking I did in TM Black. He is basically a B tier character. 12 pack. This is their first time in Twisted Metal, and I honestly kind of hope it's not their last time. I like the idea of it. I know they get a lot of flack because it's a really weird, like, supernatural, like, way over the board than Twisted Metal's ever really seen, even though they've kind of gone down that route a few times. But it's a headless man. It's literally a dude who's dead, a corpse, driving a vehicle with no head. It makes absolutely no sense, but it's still a cool concept, and the picture is really gory and it looks interesting. I like the look of the vehicle, actually. It looks just like a destruction derby vehicle that just has some weapons and missiles on it, which is really cool. And it's very fast. It's a tight controlling vehicle. It's fun to drive. Reminds me of Specter. But his special weapon is literally just a stripped reticle from Twisted Metal Black, and it doesn't do nearly as much damage. It's pretty damn weak, very inaccurate, and it takes a long time to shoot. So yeah, I don't want to put him in trash tier because I love the design of the car and it feels good to drive. But yeah, he's easily a C tier character. Next is Warthog, and this time around, he is definitely the weaker version between Twisted Metal Black and Lost. I don't know what they did here. Yeah, it might have just been an unfinished build, of course, so that might be the case here, but his special weapon doesn't feel nearly as strong. He doesn't feel nearly as fast and fluid in his controls as he did in Black. He feels very sluggish here. His armor is really good, though, still. No problem there. It's just, yeah, his special weapon's nothing to write home about, and he's very sluggish in his speed and handling. So this does suck to say, but I'm going to have to put Warthog in the C tier ranking. And then Gold Tooth, like I stated before, this is their first time in Twisted Metal, but it's, yeah, it was just a quick thrown together thing. You can clearly tell the textures look super muddy and gross. There's nothing special about him. It's just Sweet Tooth, but with extra armor, and his special does like double the amount of damage. But it's the exact same special, exact same everything as Sweet Tooth. It's just better. So even though, since I put Sweet Tooth in A tier, I mean, Gold Tooth's got to go S tier, even though I absolutely hate the look of it. It's super ugly and it's stupid looking, but it is what it is. It's S tier. So that is my ranking, tier list, whatever you want to call it, of the characters from TM Lost. I just want to do this quick little bonus round. Kind of want to went through it really quickly with you guys, but I wanted to put it at the end of the video because I didn't feel like it was big enough to make its own video out of it, at least in my opinion. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that little piece of extra content, I suppose, ironically, because it is extra content to head on. So with that, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Cannot believe we reached 1,000 subscribers. It's absolutely mind-boggling how fast this channel grew in such a short amount of time and how much love and support we've gotten. The Discord has exploded with so many amazing people being super nice and genuine in there and having great conversations, joining the voice chats, streaming their games and having fun talking about Twisted Metal. It's been an absolute dream. It's been what I've wanted to do since I ever started on YouTube back in the day. And I can't thank you guys enough for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. So just super excited to see what the future has for the channel. And I'm excited to see what you guys think of the new content coming forward. So with that, have a wonderful day. Leave a like, share, support as always. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace.